Hi everyone, I'm making this little video to teach you how to get your data for your survey research project entered into an Excel spreadsheet and ready to go in class when it is due. So first things first, you've got to collect all your data, and I think I set the minimum at 20, or 20 is fine. You don't actually need to get more than 20. And so you're going to have about 20 pieces of paper that look like this, filled out and given back to you. So 20 different people have circled or written in their answers on your survey, and I kind of used an amalgam of a bunch of different people's types of survey questions on this example so that you could kind of see, how do I enter that kind of question? How do I enter that kind of question? So let's say that your survey looks like this. So what you need to do is, first of all, decide what kind of number are you going to be typing in to Excel for each question. So let's go through question by question and think about, how am I going to code this? What is the actual number that's going to be going into my spreadsheet for this question? So let's look at this one. On average, how many hours a day do you spend on any social media site? And the way that the person set up this question is sort of using bins of hours. So if somebody circles this one, that means they spend no hours a day. If someone circles that one, that means they spend between 1 and 2. On this one, they spend between 3 and 4. So theoretically, somebody has circled an answer on this. So let's say that somebody has circled an answer on your survey like this that indicates a range of hours, like 3 to 4. So what do you actually type into your spreadsheet for a question like this? Well, the way you've got to do it when you've got discontinuous data like this is you've got to assign each of these answer choices a value. So I would say on a question like this, if somebody has circled none, I would enter a 0 for that. And then I would make this one a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so basically you've got a categorical variable. So again, a 5 on this one, it doesn't mean 5 hours, it just means they picked option number 5. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's always good to make, if you have an answer choice that means none or nothing, to make that equal a 0. So that one's pretty easy. So let's look at what we would enter. So first, you've got to name each of your questions. You got to give each of them a name. So for this first one, hours a day you spend on a social media site, I would give this variable the name hours social media. You don't want to put any spaces between the words or the letters in your variable title. And so each column in your spreadsheet is going to be the title of one of your variables. And each variable is just a different question on your survey. So for your hours on social media, maybe the first person's survey, they said, I spend no hours. On the second person's survey, let's go back and look what our options were again. Maybe the second person who filled it out circled this 3 to 4 option. So that would be a 0, 1, 2. We'd give that person a score of 2, and so on, until you go down and you have 20 people's worth of data. I'm just going to make up fake data, which is bad, but just bear with me. Okay. So we have a variable name up here, and each of the scores in each of these cells indicates, what did your first person circle on question number 1? What did your second person circle on question number 1? So each of these is a different score for a different person. Okay? So that's our first question, and we've basically got to go in and enter that data for every single question on your survey. So let's look at this next one. When you have a continuous variable like this, so what is your GPA on a 4.0 scale? Some of you had questions like that. That is where somebody is just going to write down a number. So they might write down a 4.0, they might write down a 3.6. So what you enter into the spreadsheet is going to be exactly the number that they wrote down, because they're writing down a number on a continuous scale. So let's give this variable a name. Let's call it GPA. Just needs to be something that makes sense to you, GPA. And every person is going to have given you a number. So first person gave you a 4.0, maybe somebody has a 2.6, 3.1, etc. You're entering exactly the number that they wrote down. Okay, let's look at a different one. So number 3, how many days a week do you eat breakfast? This is going to be really similar to our GPA variable. So I'm going to call this variable name breakfast. And again, when somebody's just writing down a number for you, then you put whatever the number is that they wrote down. If they write something like not sure, then we just like have to leave that blank. So let's say this person eats breakfast every day. This person never eats breakfast. Well, this person said, I'm not sure. If you have somebody who doesn't give you a response that fits within your response options, then you leave it blank and you go to the next one, okay? All right. Let's look at the next type of question. Okay, a lot of you have questions on your survey that are asking a yes/no question. So are you currently in a romantic relationship? Yes or no? Here's how we're going to code yes/no questions. If they circle yes, you give it a 1. If they circle no, you give it a 0. And the reason that we code yes/no questions using a 1 and a 0 is because basically a 1 is telling you the presence of that thing, and if they circled no, that means the absence of that thing. So 0 amount of romantic relationship. So I'm going to give this one a name. I'm going to call it R-relate, like a romantic relationship. And all of the numbers in this column are going to be 0s and 1s, right? Because they can only answer a yes or a no. Okay. And then the last question on this person's survey is one of those Likert type scales that ranges from extremely dissatisfied to extremely satisfied. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-point Likert scale. What you're going to do with Likert scales is it's kind of like what we did on number 1, is assign each of these answer choices a number. And the way that you usually want to do it, although it's not incorrect to do it the opposite way from this, is I like high numbers to equal high levels of agreement, high levels of satisfaction, high levels of truthiness. So wherever you're extremely satisfied or agree strongly, wherever that option is, we're going to make that one the 5. So if they circle this, you give them a score of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Generally, you just want to set the way you code this data up so that bigger numbers equal more of a thing. So a 5 would be more satisfied than somebody who answered a 1, which is not very satisfied. So if somebody circled neither dissatisfied or satisfied on theirs, you would enter a score of 3 for them. So let's give this variable a name, like overall sat. And again, people's scores on this one are going to be somewhere between a 4 and a 5 because those are all the possible options for your study. Now, so this is probably just about what your data set will look like. It'll have 4 to 5 columns. And again, remember, each column represents a variable. So, and a variable in this case just being a survey item that you gave. And you need to give it some kind of label, some kind of name up here on the first row. So here's my GPA question. Here's my breakfast question. Here's my relationship question. Okay. So the top row is going to be your variable names, and every row underneath that is going to be a person. So like this is the first person's whole survey. Like they said, I spend 0 hours a week on social media, and I have a 4.0, and I eat breakfast 7 days a week, and I'm in a romantic relationship, and overall I am very dissatisfied with your romantic relationship. So each row is a single person. So for example, here's the next person who filled out your survey. They spend 2 hours a week on social media. They have a 2.6 GPA. They eat breakfast 7 days a week. They are not in a romantic relationship. That's what the 0 means. And they would give their current relationship a score of 3, which means neither satisfied or dissatisfied. So you need to do this for all 20 people that you gave the survey for. So you go across and enter each person's scores on every variable so that you will have a matrix that's filled out with variable names at the top and each row being one of your 20 people. If somebody skips a question or writes something down that you really can't use for your survey, like they put not sure and you're like, well, that's not what I was asking you, then you might have some empty cells in here. Otherwise, if you have a person who's filled out everything, then they should have a value in every single one of their cells. So this is really all I need you to have in class when we're ready to analyze our data. So you need to bring in a file that looks like this, and maybe the hard copies of your surveys, bring those with you in case there's any kind of questions that we have, or maybe you think you've entered some of your data wrong. And if you have your file like this and you have your hard copies of your surveys, then you're going to be ready to go. And what we're going to be learning in class is, what do we do with these spreadsheets full of data? Once we have them, can we run some correlations? What kinds of things can we do? But if you have it set up like this and you need to bring it on a computer, and again, let me know ahead of time if you're going to need a computer with Excel so I can have one ready for you. And then you're going to be ready to analyze data in class. And that's all the tips I think you need to know about entering data.